Hi guys, today I wanted to do my review of the Delirium Trilogy by Lauren Oliver, and I have to say I really liked these books. I ended up really enjoying the trilogy, but these took me forever to get through, and I feel like I am just so ecstatic to finally be done with the series because I was reading them for so long. And I think the reason why is because I started Delirium at the very end of June, so I started it then, and then I just finished the last book, which is Requiem, like a couple days ago. So it's taken me a very long time to get through when I had to move and all that stuff, but I'm really excited to finally talk to you guys about them. I've been promising this review for a while now, and it just hasn't shown up, so I apologize for that. But if you're not aware of this book kind of trilogy, the first book is Delirium, the second book is Pandemonium, and then the final book is Requiem. So those are the three books. There is also a couple of novellas that go hand in hand with this book for some of the characters from the series. I have not read those yet, but I did see that they have them all in like a little bind up now, which is really nice. So if you are very into the series or you want to read more about the characters, there's a novella, and I will be sure to have all of the books linked below as well, and I will link that too. I always do that with all of my books in case you're curious to go check them out or something more. I will link them all below. So what I'm going to do today is combine all three of the books into one. So I'm going to start with a general review of Delirium for anybody who has yet to read it, because I always like to do a spoiler-free review. So I'm going to start with that and just do a general kind of synopsis and about the characters and stuff, and then I will talk more in depth about all three of them, because I feel like if you have not read the first book, then that might benefit you, but if you've read it, then you can hear what I have to say more about it, and then the other two won't apply if you're not sure whether to read it or not. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to jump right in and get started. As far as cover art, because I always like to start with cover art, I'm not super crazy about these covers. I like them fine, but I mean, I don't think that they're anything spectacular, and they don't, you know, catch my eye like a lot of others do. So those are what the three look like. Out of the three, my two favorites would have to be these two, the second and the third one. I haven't decided which one I like the best out of these. Probably the second one, because I like the orangey kind of red tones of it, but my least favorite is definitely the first one. I just feel like they're kind of just a little bit boring. Not bad, but they're just not my favorites. Okay, so basically the synopsis of Delirium is centered within the United States. It starts out in Portland and is centered around the character of Lena, who is a young kind of teenage girl, and basically the world of Delirium is about anti-love and how they consider love within the United States to be bad and to be the cause of like all the world's problems, and they talk about the past being like today's present for us. So like the world we live in is essentially the past for these people, so it's almost like a futuristic dystopian book, which is really cool but also a little bit interesting too. So they consider love to be a disease, and it's very bad. Consider the causation of like all of war and all of these problems people have and all of this kind of just evil things that were wrong with the world. So they have rules and regulations against love. They make everybody, I believe when they turn 18, go through a procedure called the cure, where they insert all of this like equipment into them and do something to their brain where they no longer have any temptations to love or have anything to do with that. So once you turn 18, you have to go through this procedure, and there's a test involved, and then after that they give you a group of people that are potential marriage matches. So they essentially choose who the people's spouses are within the book, but they also give them a little bit of choice. So they kind of match people up based on their social status and their kind of qualities that are very similar. It is centered around a girl named Lena, who is 17, I believe, at the time, and her procedure and her cure is coming up in a couple of months or weeks in the very beginning of this book. So Lena's character is very into following the rules and the regulations, and she's excited to finally go through the cure and to be done and to have it and all of that. And then she kind of has a change of heart as the book goes on, because she meets a boy named Alex who is a little bit different in his kind of mindset. He's not as into you know, following the rules and feeling like he has to do that because he's already cured, And so then Alex starts to change her perspective on things, and it just kind of goes from there. So I really like those two characters. I like them together. I think that their conversations and their relationship was really nice to read, and I loved especially the character of Alex. And I like how Lena's character progresses throughout the novel, so she definitely changes a little bit. Another character I think that is really important is Hana, who is Lena's best friend. And Hana is a little bit more of a rebellious individual. She is more likely to do something that she knows she's not supposed to, but that she's interested in doing, and she comes from more of a wealthy background, so she can kind of get away with more because nobody's really there to tell her not to. Her parents both work, and so she's kind of just doing her own thing, and she kind of gets involved in some things that she's not supposed to be doing. So I like Hana. I think that she's definitely a spunky character, and I feel like she's important because she definitely is somehow responsible for what happens within the entire scope of the whole trilogy in Lena's kind of point of view. So she causes things to happen for Lena in a subtle way. So if you go and you read all of it, then you'll understand that. But Hana is an important player. So that is pretty much the whole book of Delirium in a synopsis. So definitely check it out if you have not read it yet, or if you've been thinking about reading it, because it's a very interesting book. I have to say it did take me a while to get into it. Probably about halfway through I started to get into it and to really like it. So I know a lot of people have said that they tried to read it and they just did not like it, so they didn't finish. But if you kind of haven't read that far, at least give it a chance. Try to read through the first book and then see if you want to continue on with the second and the third, because I think it's worth reading, and I really did like it for a dystopian book. Now I'm going to go into more of a discussion, so if you haven't read the book, then you might want to leave and not watch this part. So I'm going to just talk a little bit more spoilers about this. I really liked Lena and Alex together. Obviously, I'm really excited that she chose to pack up and leave and go to the wilds with him. But as we all know, the cliffhanger at the very end was that Lena made it over the wall and Alex did not. So that sucks, and that was definitely obviously made for the cliffhanger, but I really hate that, and I wish that he would have gone. But it also, I guess, leads into the second book. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the first one. Oh, I do wish that Hana would have gone with them, because Lena was like, come with us, and she was like, no, because she just was like, what am I going to do over there? Which is strange, because she was more of the rebellious character who was all into the music and all of the stuff that she wasn't supposed to be. But then at the end of the day, she's the one that ends up staying. So that was interesting, but I really liked how that one kind of finished. Now, the second book, Pandemonium, talks obviously about Lena's journey into the wilds and her adjusting to life in the wilds and all of the differences between what she's known and what she is now, which I liked. I really liked how it talked about her kind of dealing with losing Alex and all of this stuff, and Alex ends up being locked up in the crypts, which he later escapes, which we find out at the end of the book. So I'm really excited about that part. Now, I was not crazy at first about how the chapters stagger between then and now, because I really liked the then aspect of it, which was talking about Lena in the wilds and how she adjusted, and then the now part was her back into the United States, like in the kind of real part of society, where she was pretending to be somebody for the cause of the resistance, which is the invalids or the people of the wilds kind of movement to get freedom and love back into the world, and to kind of overthrow essentially the idea that Deliria is bad. So I wasn't crazy about that at first, but then it started to get very interesting as it went on. And then Lena meets Julian and they're captured, and then they have to break free, and then Julian ends up becoming, you know, an invalid with her, and they end up leaving. So I like that part of it. I have to say I'm not crazy about Julian as like a love interest. I still have my heart set on Alex. I liked Alex, and I thought that he was just better than Julian, I have to say. And then as far as the other characters, Raven was definitely an important character. I like her okay. I feel like she's alright. She's not my favorite, but she's pretty spunky, and she kind of is the leader of the pack, so I like her. Of course, at the very end of the book, we have another cliffhanger, which I knew had to happen, and I tell you guys, if this had not happened, I would have been so mad. Like, I would have been so annoyed that the book did not let this happen. Like, I was going to be so pissed that I read this book and that it didn't happen. But of course, at the very end, there is Alex, and he showed back up, and it talks about like Lena and Julian had just made it back to safety. They were getting ready to move on, and then Raven tells her that this boy broke out of the crypts somewhere, or broke out of like confinement, and it made his way there. And then of course we all know it's gonna be Alex, and she looks, and it was Alex, and then the book stops. And I was so excited about that because I was hoping that he would have shown up a little bit earlier in the book. I was really wanting to see more with him and Lena, but of course he didn't show up till the very end, which was another cliffhanger. So that was really great. That was obviously the best part of the book, was like the very end of the book. So that happened. And then the last book talks about the love triangle aspect of this. So basically they're all together now, Raven and all of them, and they're planning on moving on. And Lena is with Julian, but Alex is there, and she still loves Alex, but he's a different person. He's very like guarded and hard now, and all of these things that have happened to him. So he won't even talk to Lena. He doesn't even look her way. And at the very beginning of the book, she tries to talk to him and be like, oh my gosh, like I miss you, whatever, and he just shuts her down. And so that kind of stinks. So the entire book we have to go through that kind of struggle, and they're also working more with the resistance of trying to figure out ways to rebel against like the government forces and all these things. So they move a lot in this, and it just talks more about the survival and their kind of path to keep going and to progress the kind of Deliria back into the world. So I really like this. This book also has the staggering effect of the chapters. So it goes from Lena to Hana. So I'll show you guys if you haven't read this yet, which you probably shouldn't be watching this if you haven't. So it goes from Lena to Hana, which at first, again, I wasn't crazy about because I really like to read continuous. It was almost like a struggle to get through the Hana chapters to get to the next Lena, but I liked a lot of the Hana chapters, especially when she was kind of rebelling against her world and kind of against her fiance Fred. So I really liked that. Hana started to get a little bit of her old traits back, but she was still very different because she's been cured. So she's very more calm and collected. She's also got a lot going on inside that's not normal, or at least she feels like the cure went wrong for her. She shouldn't be feeling this, and she feels a lot of guilt about Lena and her family, which at first you don't find out why, but she tries to help them. She goes to find them. Been put into like the Deering Highlands part of the city, and she tries to bring them food and stuff because they're in poverty now and like really bad off. And so she tries to help them and stuff because she's feeling guilty. And then we find out that the reason why is because she was the one that told on Alex and Lena in the first book, and that's why they got caught, and that's why Alex got captured. And oh my gosh, like that was like a cliffhanger within this book. Like I read that and I was like, oh, no, she did. I was like, are you kidding? The whole thing would have been perfectly fine and they would have all lived happily ever after. Well, not really, but you know. It's very surprising, and I could not believe that. So that was a nice little like shock in the middle of the book, which I liked. So then after that, Hana continues to progress and become a little bit more standoffish to her world, and she's very questioning of Fred and who she's marrying because she realizes that he's a really bad person inside. And then at the very end, there's this whole big kind of struggle where all of these people in the resistance try to take down and invade Portland to take down the wall. And at this process, Alex has already left, and he's kind of had a fallout with Lena and Julian because it's kind of evident that he still loves Lena, but he's left because she's with Julian. So when the resistance invades Portland, Lena goes back in on her own. She kind of gets separated from everybody, and oh my gosh, you guys, Raven dies, which is another huge shock that also is really upsetting, but they don't really talk too much about it in the book just because it's kind of like an instant thing, and then Lena has to keep going to fight for her life. So she gets separated from Julian and all of the people, and then she decides to go on her own mission, which is to find Grace, who was from the first book and who was her cousin who she loved. So she tries to go find Grace, and in the process she gets hit by a car, which, big surprise, is Hannah's car. And Hannah's wedding was going on, and then the resistance people came in, and then it was broken up. So Hana was being sped away back to Fred's house, and they run over Lena, and then Hana recognizes Lena, so she says, bring her with us, we're gonna turn her in, but she's coming with us. So long story short, then Hana ends up letting Lena go, which was awesome because, and I felt like I knew that that was gonna happen. Like I knew that she was gonna let her go, so that was exciting. So they kind of had a talk, and then Lena finds out Hana was the one that turned them in, and was surprised that Lena wasn't as upset as she should have been, but I guess she didn't really have time to deal with that. So Hana lets her go, and then Lena tells Hana that they are going to blow up the house that is Fred's house, and so she tells that, and Hana is able to escape, but Fred ends up going up in flames, which honestly he kind of deserved, let's be honest. He was kind of a douche. Hana tells Lena where Grace is, so she goes and she gets Grace out and saves her from a fire, and then they're leaving and she sees Alex and she talks to him and she's like, is it true you still love me? And he was like, yes. Oh, like, it'll be okay, we're changed, but we're meant to be together and whatever. So that's pretty much how the book ends, and I really liked that. Like, honestly, too, if that had not happened, it was going to be like another major plot fail, but I knew it had to happen at some point. So I really was happy with the way the book ended. I wish that there would have been a little bit more at the end. Like, I know a lot of people said they felt like the book was incomplete, but I felt like it was good how it ended anyways, and that it kind of ended on a happy note because the resistance made progress and they got back together and stuff. So I really liked that, and I thought that it was really nice. And then this book had the excerpt of Alex, like the little novella for Alex in it, which I thought was really, really good. And it talked about Alex when he was in the crypts and how he thought of Lena every day and how she's the reason why he ended up breaking out, which I thought was really good. And I feel like it would be very interesting if Lauren Oliver were to go back and write these books from Alex's perspective, because I feel like that would be really interesting. So overall, really pleased with these books. I would definitely recommend you guys to check them out, although I'm hoping you already read them if you are watching this far into the video. Otherwise, I just spoiled everything for you. But I hope if you guys read them that you enjoyed them as well. If you did or you didn't, definitely let me know below in the comments, because I would love to hear what you guys thought. But I really did like them, which is good, because I was kind of hesitant at first when I first started the first book. And I felt like at some parts of all of the books they had a little bit of a slow kind of drag phase, but that they ended out really, really well. And I wish that more of the ending kind of book excitement would have happened more within the books, but I still liked them a lot. So yeah, I guess that's all I have to say to kind of sum up this very long video. So I hope you guys liked this and that you're doing very well, and I will talk to you all next time. Bye guys. Confusing series, if that makes sense, and I think we're on the 4th season now. We could still be on the 3rd, but I think we're on the 4th season now, and they're still trying